We have three amazing speakers. Our first one just joined me up here. Nabila, welcome. We're so excited to have you. She's going to be followed by JP Polo from Discover Puerto Rico and Jamie Brett from the Museum of Youth Culture. So Nabila, we'll send it over to you. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to hear about your work at the National Aquarium. If you guys aren't following the National Aquarium on social media, you should be. I love following them. Nabila, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm so thrilled to be here representing the National Aquarium. As Kristen mentioned, my name is Nabila Shami, and I am the Director of Brand Strategy for the National Aquarium. And we're located here in Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm going to spend just a few minutes this morning really breaking down what our brand strategy approach is and how we have evolved it rapidly as this year has thrown us a few curveballs. So for those of you who haven't visited the National Aquarium, hopefully you can conjure up an image of what the aquarium looks like in your head, and it's close to this. So here in Baltimore, we are thrilled to be able to welcome, in a normal year, just over 1 million visitors each year, and they get to spend a few hours with us exploring habitats from across the globe and meeting tens of thousands of animals. But the aquarium is more than just an entertainment educational venue. We're a purpose-driven organization with a nonprofit mission, and that mission is really to change the way that humanity cares for the ocean. So, as so many of you know, our planet is not doing its best. Humans have for centuries been negatively impacting its health. And so at the aquarium, while we love to inspire and connect folks with habitats and animals, we also want to drive change, and we use our stories to drive that exact change. And those stories are really centered around what we think is our core belief, which is that water connects us all. So from wherever you are joining this summit today, we know that the actions that you take today and tomorrow and next week will have either a positive or negative impact on your surrounding waterways and ultimately the ocean. And so our goal as storytellers is to bridge the gap, make that connection really feel core and central to each of us so that as communities, we can join together and make some positive changes. And so at the aquarium, we are so lucky to tell our stories. I honestly feel really lucky on a daily basis to get to learn the incredible things that I learn about the ocean and get to share those stories with our online communities. And this is just one example of what actually was a bright spot for us in 2020. You're looking at obviously a drone image from up above of the nation's latest national marine preserve called Mallows Bay. This area is right near the National Aquarium here in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and it's the perfect example of human connection and a human action driving change in nature. These shipwrecks that exist in Mallows Bay, they've been around for hundreds of years. And while maybe at first they were an imposition, they now serve as critical habitats for the animals that live there. And so with others in our community, the National Aquarium was able to pretty much advocate strongly nationally for this area to receive the protections that it's received so that for generations to come, the animals and the humans that rely on this place can continue to rely on it and the nature can continue to thrive. And when we talk about future generations, we are so thrilled to be able to actually bring students, again, in a normal year, because 2020 is not a normal year, but bring students to places like Mallows Bay and give them the opportunity to learn about the animals, but also take part in their rehabilitation. So here you see just one group of the thousands of students that have participated in our Terrapins in the Classroom program. They spend the year in their classroom caring for a terrapin, a baby terrapin, and at the end of their school year, they actually have the opportunity to release the animal back into its native habitat. And for us, there's no story that really demonstrates that core connection to our planet than this one. And our goals with these stories are really to inspire. There's so much when we start to really unpack this year, but certainly the last few years and where we are as a planet, as an environment. It's not great, and we know that, but together there's so much that we can do. And so one of our core beliefs is also that, together we are as powerful as the ocean itself. And those of us who are at the aquarium, we really believe this, and it's something that really drives so much of our work. So, of course, there was brand strategy before 2020 and brand strategy now. And for us, as it is, I believe for so many of you, those two things are completely different. And our brand is changing and evolving every day in how we're strategizing and how we're storytelling. The aquarium this year was closed for 4 months, our longest extended closure since we had opened in 1981. And it was hard for so many of us who rely on that direct connection to the habitats and the animals that make the aquarium what it is. But the good news about a place like the National Aquarium is that the animals are still there. They still require the same level of care and commitment from our staff. And so the stories are still there, and we can still offer that connection to the folks that make up our online community. And so another one of those bright spot stories is Pippi. Pippi here is a gray seal pup who was rescued last February, so right before we closed our doors to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Pippi was just a month old when she was rescued here on the coast of Delaware. And she became one of our longest seal rescue residents and one of our most complicated cases, which none of us anticipated as we were just starting off a very complicated year. But Pippi received the same round-the-clock care that she would have received whether or not we had been open, and was able to make an astounding recovery. And just last week, after surgery and gaining a lot of weight and new fur, because that's what baby seals need to do, Pippi was actually released back into the ocean. And so being able to really bookmark a year like 2020 with Pippi's release certainly meant so much to those of us who work at the aquarium, but also meant so much to those of the public that really make up our online communities and our supporters and our guests and our members who continue to provide the financial and other support that we need in order to keep going. And I just wanted to highlight for everyone a few other ways that the National Aquarium has pivoted in 2020. The first is a robot, which I didn't really think I would know much about robots in 2020, but I've learned a lot. Because Vigo is a tool that we're able to use to virtually tour folks through the aquarium, as you see happening here in our Australia exhibit. And so it's the perfect antidote to not being able to have the same experience maybe in person that you had been planning on having in a year like 2020. And I'm thrilled to really focus on this as a story because this program has been piloted with children that are in our local hospitals here in Maryland, including Johns Hopkins, and really giving those kids who come to Baltimore for a less than fun experience, a very scary experience, the opportunity to just be a kid for a couple of hours and have the aquarium to yourself. And it's one of the programs that we're all so proud of. And the few other ways that we maintained a special connection to our audiences as we were closed for a few months was we hopped on the TikTok bandwagon. Of course, we had been deliberating it strategically for a few months prior, but nothing like a pandemic to decide now's the time. And in just a few short months, we were able to grow a rather substantial community of followers and share special behind the scenes footage of what life was like as we all continued to come to the aquarium and care for the animals, though our doors were closed to the public. So it was a really nice way to both get on a platform for the first time, build community, reach a new audience, but also make TikTok this special value for those who care about the aquarium and want to follow our journey, because it was content that we weren't sharing elsewhere. And finally, we leveraged Instagram stories and some of the other more interactive components of our social to give folks direct connection to our experts while they couldn't come visit the aquarium. So we hosted a couple Q&As every week with different experts and let our audiences decide, do they want to speak to the jellies expert today or the shark expert? And these Q&As were great for our audiences, but also great for us as storytellers because we got to collaborate directly with the experts that we have in-house, help them understand the value of their stories, and just grow together as a team. So all in all, great year from a storytelling perspective, even though the aquarium was closed, and we still have this fervent connection with our digital communities. Our digital community has grown, and we're thrilled to be able to continue to innovate in 2021. So with that, I just want to thank you all for the time and share my email and where you can find me on Twitter. I'd love to connect with all of you.
Amazing. Nabila, thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm excited for you to come back for the Q&A. I'll go ahead and invite up JP Polo from Discover Puerto Rico. If you are not following the National Aquarium and you have not seen Pippi, everyone needs to go check that out right away. So Nabila, you are off the hook for now. Thank you for being here. We'll have you back in a minute. JP, welcome. We're so excited. If you guys haven't seen, JP has put some amazing behind the scenes photos in our behind the scenes channel in Slack. Go check those out. You'll see Jimmy Fallon in there making a cameo in his behind the scenes photos, which is great. And JP, I'll let you take it from there. We're so excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go ahead and hit play on the presentation. And first of all, introduce myself. My name is John Paul Polo, but I go by JP. And I'm the Director of Creative Strategy at Discover Puerto Rico. And you might know Puerto Rico is, an island in the Caribbean. We're part of the U.S. And, we're a great tourist destination for people in the U.S. and for people international. Now, for many years, the promotion of Puerto Rico as a tourist destination was in the hands of the government. But the government itself decided to make a change, and they decided to create a new organization, what's called internationally a DMO, or a destination marketing organization. And in 2017, they passed legislation to create this non-for-profit organization, which is now called Discover Puerto Rico. And our mission is to bring prosperity to the island of Puerto Rico by strategically positioning the island as a tourist destination, as a place for conventions, and as a place for events. Now, that legislation could have been more opportune. As a lot of you know, in 2017, Puerto Rico was hit by a hurricane, Hurricane Maria, one of the biggest hurricanes to have ever hit the island of Puerto Rico, and really that sort of took a big stab at the tourism industry here in Puerto Rico. But it was a great opportunity for the DMO to show why it was created and to show the ability that a destination marketing organization has to put forth strong marketing projects and be able to act nimbly. So one of our first obstacles was how do we overcome knowing that the first year anniversary of Hurricane Maria was coming on board, and there was going to be coverage of Puerto Rico. So people, associate Puerto Rico with a lot of destruction, a lot of images that were being brought up from 2017. So we put our heads together. We worked with our PR agencies and our branding agencies, up with a strategy that we called a campaign #CoverTheProgress. And Cover the Progress was this unique idea where we were challenging the media, especially the media in the mainland US, who were covering a lot of the negative stories of the impact of the hurricane. And we were telling them, hey, we appreciate the fact that you are covering the negative stories, and it's very important because it has an impact on the way that people perceive Puerto Rico and the way that federal funds are being distributed. But we also want you to cover all the progress that Puerto Rico has faced in the last year. Because as an island in the Caribbean, our tourism industry is very important to the economic development of our island. However, in Puerto Rico, it's only 6 to 7% of our GDP, and part of the mission of Discover Puerto Rico is to elevate that to be more online with some of our competitive set, like the Dominican Republic or Hawaii, where it can be up to 20 or 60% of their GDP. So we put this challenge to the media, and we put together a video with Joe F. It's going to throw on the Slack channel. It was a campaign we called Cover the Progress. We went to a town in the east coast of Puerto Rico called Humacao. It was a very famous image, which you're going to see on the left side of your screen. It said SOS, necesitamos agua, comida, we need water, food. Obviously, this community had been hit really hard. We went back there, we talked to them, we said, what is the new message that you want to convey to the world? And this is a community that's very much impacted by tourism. They rely a lot on tourism. And the message that they wanted to convey was bienvenidos, welcome back. They wanted to welcome back tourists to our island. And that video that you showed was the lead off for our campaign. It had a massive impact all around the world. People from mainland US media started to actually cover the progress. And this is the image of sort of an aerial drone image of the new sign that was put up in the community of Humacao. Now, that campaign went on to win a Silver Lion at the Cannes PR Festival. But not only that, it received 1 billion impressions worldwide and a total earned media ad value of over $14 million, which was really the kickoff to what we started to do in Puerto Rico and how we started to reposition the brand and our rebranding as a tourist destination. This led to Jimmy Fallon wanting to come down to Puerto Rico and shoot a full episode. I think it's the first time that he shot a full episode outside the studio. We were able to co-produce that episode with him. And it really started a snowball effect on the way that people were perceiving the island. They started to see Puerto Rico as a true destination that they could travel to. They started to realize that Puerto Rico was not as devastated as they were seeing in the media. And that led also to us being named the New York Times #1 place to go to in 2019. And a bunch of other accolades that came with that, including accolades by Forbes, Travel Leisure, and National Geographic. While all that was going on in 2018, we were also going through a massive rebranding and repositioning. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details of the research, but we did massive amounts of research to understand how people perceived the island. What did they think about Puerto Rico? What were the things that they most wanted to see when they came to the island? And what was our competitive set? Where could we distinguish ourselves from the our competitors in the Caribbean and around Latin America? And what we found out was Puerto Rico was sort of in the neutral zone. People did not know a lot about Puerto Rico, but they didn't feel negatively about the island. They said, there was a high chance of them wanting to travel. They knew us for things like, our excellent beaches, and they thought that, we had a strong emotional heat. There were a lot of artistry, and they saw us as a resilient and optimistic destination. So we took all that and we really built our brand description, which is Puerto Rico is a vibrant, colorful celebration infused with a fiery passion, dancing to a beat unlike anywhere else in the world. Sophisticated yet sexy, rooted in authenticity, it's soul infectious, un abrazo, a hug, enveloped with pride, and unapologetically its own. Welcoming everybody to share. In Puerto Rico, you're not just invited to the party, we want you to dance. So I've also asked Joel to put together on the Slack channel our Brandscape video, which really sort of brings together all of our branding and repositioning into a nice cohesive video. After that, we launched our Have We Met Yet campaign, which was reintroducing us to our core audience in the United States. And we did that through a 30-second TV spot, which should also be on the Slack channel. And as you can see, we started to incorporate that imagery into everything that we were doing throughout all of our digital ads and print ads as well. And here you're seeing some of the images that we've been able to take. And one thing I didn't mention at the beginning of the presentation, a key thing that Discover Puerto Rico as the marketing organization did was we made the decision to actually have all of our in-house content produced in-house. So currently, the team that I lead is a team of 4 in-house creatives. We have around 27 creatives around the island, and we really don't rely on an agency to produce the content for us. Because of the amount of content that social media requires, we've taken sort of that burden, if you will, upon our shoulders, and we're the ones who are actually producing 85 to 95% of the photography, video, ad campaigns, and TV spots that you see representing Puerto Rico worldwide. That research also led to understanding what some of our core niche markets are. For us, the LGBT community is a very important community for us. We want the LGBT community to know that in Puerto Rico, they're extremely welcomed. So we went ahead and conducted various photo shoots across the island, showcasing the LGBTQ and the inclusivity in Puerto Rico. And here are some examples. That led to us being named the Destination of the Year by Gay Cities in 2018. And here you see some additional images from our LGBTQ shoots. Family segment is also a very important segment for us. Puerto Rico is a great place to travel with your family. It's a safe place to travel to. You've got a lot of different things that you can enjoy. Everything from beaches to our mountain area to our amazing resorts. So we went ahead and we conducted shoots all across the island, showcasing the inclusivity as well that we strive for here in Puerto Rico. And here you can see some of the great images our team has been able to produce. The gastronomy segment is also a key differentiating factor for us. Food in Puerto Rico is amazing. If you've never been to Puerto Rico, if you've never had a mofongo, alcapurria, bacalaíto, you need to come down and taste these amazing gastronomical offerings. And we knew that that was going to be a key differentiating factor. So we've conducted shoots all across the island showcasing our great food. And we partner up with a content collective in Puerto Rico called La Mafia Puerto Rico, and they specialize in creating culinary content. And we produced an original series together with them. We co-produced an original series together with them called Eat, Drink, Share Puerto Rico. It's available on Discover Puerto Rico's YouTube channel, as well as La Mafia's YouTube channel. Yoav has also should have a video Slack in there with one of our episodes called El Buren de Lula. And it's really a majestical series. It really showcased all of our gastronomy, not only from a visual standpoint, but also from a historical standpoint. Golf being another great, one of our great products that we offer. We went out and we created some amazing golf print ads. And here you can see some of the images that we've produced. So we've really taken on that in-house content creation strategy so that we can feed all of our digital and social posts and platforms with content that we're actually producing in-house that we own, and we're able to sub-license to other businesses in Puerto Rico that not necessarily have the ability to be able to go out and create marketing material, and we provide all that content for free. So here you're seeing a little bit of our website. The U.S. Travel Association named our website the best travel website in 2019, so we're extremely proud about that. And really, all of this has been possible because our leadership here at Discover Puerto Rico, our CEO and our Chief Marketing Officer allowed us to create an in-house multimedia team. And as I explained before, this in-house multimedia team produces 95% of the content that you see representing Puerto Rico worldwide. We have won numerous awards. We currently provide through the PhotoShelter platform all of the small and medium businesses in Puerto Rico over 14,000 curated images that they can use for free in order to promote their own businesses. And we also have over 80 terabytes of high quality cinematic content that we can also provide to them for free that they can use not only to promote their businesses, but also to promote other products that they're able to offer outside the scope of their business. So I'm here showing a couple of the other images that we've shot. You know, at Discover Puerto Rico, we are committed to ensuring that Puerto Rico is highlighted and marketed as a world-class destination. We are part of the United States, so our main target audience is the U.S. mainland audience. You don't need a passport to travel to Puerto Rico. It's easily accessible. English is widely spoken. People are extremely friendly here. It's safe. So as we're looking at what's next, obviously travel has been one of the biggest impacted industries during the COVID pandemic. Puerto Rico has been severely impacted by that. But at Discover Puerto Rico, we have kept our marketing strategy on point. We've wanted to keep Puerto Rico top of mind because as we start to see people wanting to travel again, We know that in the United States, our main target audiences, they're going to be looking for places close to home, places that feel like home yet are exotic, and there's no better place than Puerto Rico to travel to. So that has been our in-house content strategy. I hope that it's given you a little bit of in-depth information about how we operate here at Discover Puerto Rico, and we look forward to talking to you and answering any of the questions that you might have. Thank you.
Amazing, JP. Thank you so much. We do already have a bunch of questions for you, so we'll hand it over to Jamie, and then JP, you can join us again for the Q&A because we already have a bunch of questions coming in and a lot of people saying how much they love seeing this content. So thank you so much for being here. Jamie, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Jamie's from the Museum of Youth Culture. If you aren't familiar with them, you should definitely check them out. I'm so excited for Jamie's talk so you all can get to know them and their amazing work that they're doing. So Jamie, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. And yeah, just hearing some of these inspiring stories from such amazing institutions is a real pleasure to sort of be with you guys. As we can probably tell from the sound of my accent, I'm actually coming from the UK here. And we're actually building a museum of youth culture based here in London. My role with the museum is to lead creative projects. And we're essentially trying to build a museum that is a sort of inclusive collection of photographs and objects and fashion that showcases the history of young people. So we often say that young people have created music, fashion, scenes, styles, and sounds. So we're looking at sort of creativity that's come from young people, but giving it its own space rather than necessarily including it with other museums, because we often see that big institutions are doing might do an exhibition about punk or hip hop, but actually often there's some things that are stones left unturned. So we've been on this journey since 1997, the work actually started being collected for the museum, but it's been around 2015 that we've been sort of seriously taking on that role of trying to turn this amazing archive that we have into a museum of youth culture. So just to give you a little bit of information about sort of where we come from, where we're at, PhotoShelter has had a huge role in our sort of progression as an organisation, and that's why it's a real pleasure for me to speak here today. As you can see, the museum started out as this, and this is a sort of a series of filing cabinets that include photographic slides. They were collected as part of a photo library that was formed for commercial reasons back in the 90s, because our director, John, he sort of noticed a gap in the market where people were doing magazine articles, they were making films, making documentaries, and they were looking for pictures of club nights or the mod scene or certain fashions, and he wasn't able to find those authentic images. So he reached out to photographers, and they, in an analog way, started to hand in their negatives, their slides, they were copied, and we have this incredible collection of 300,000 images that have now formed for the museum. So my role in the last 7 years has been looking at all this and turning it into something that can actually be enjoyed by the public. We're working towards opening a physical space in 2023. But in this space, we've got a beautiful gallery right now that I'm currently in, and it's just opened just before lockdown. Currently, London is in lockdown right now, so it's a shame. But we actually are starting to open up smaller, gallery pop-up spaces to start to get that message out there and start to share this content. So one of the things that we really want to do, and I think is really lots of museums are talking about at the moment, is challenging stereotypes, looking at history from a more objective perspective, covering sort of topics that maybe wouldn't be covered before, and actually just being brave and saying that this is what happened in the past. It might be negative, it might be positive, but actually we need to show it, we need to include that. And one of the most sort of amazing things that started to happen is we started to receive images coming in from the public as submissions, and those submissions have started to really shape the museum. So we've gone from professional photographers to public images that are being submitted. This one in particular is from the 1920s. So the archive, the museum now goes back to 100 years of youth culture, and that's been only over lockdown. So I'm going to go and tell you more about how that happened. Just before I do that, just good to mention such a physical organisation, and I think, like people have mentioned previously before me, we've all struggled during this period. And COVID-19 is sort of, we're taking images from those boxes and getting them out with young people, doing workshops about youth self-expression, looking at pictures of people growing up, and actually seeing that the people that come from difficult backgrounds are often represented in the archive as well. That's been a real challenge in itself. One of the things that we knew we needed to do, if we knew that this year was always going to be about asking the public to bring us their photographs, because we know that what it looks like to grow up in the 1960s in academic books or in museums is quite different to what everyday people did. And of course, there's always these amazing people that did amazing things, musicians and artists, but actually we want to talk about these sort of more mainstream everyday people, because we feel that this is the first museum that can have a picture of everybody in it, ignoring the traditional standards that museums normally have, which is to have something that's worth quite a lot of money, a painting or a sculpture. We're actually saying that everyone could be part of this. So we started a national campaign last year asking everyone in Britain, so starting out in the UK, but obviously this could be a big worldwide project, we're just asking them to send us a photograph. We also did events where we go to like a pub, or we go to a bingo hall, and we start to speak to older people, and we'd send out like a flyer like this, and we'd say if we were going to sort of a motorbike club, for example, we knew we needed images of motorbike kids, we would make a kind of an image that references that community and get it out on their Facebook. And events that we were doing sort of physically looked like this. This is my colleague Lisa with Tina. Tina's a motorbiker. She still rides around on a bike. She's from that sort of early rock and roll community, which had a big thing in London as well. Obviously, so much youth culture has been imported from the States, but lots of it has also been formed in the UK, particularly in London, in more underground things. But these events were the sort of way that we gathered images as part of this Growing Up in Britain campaign. Our plan was to go to tens of locations all across the UK, and obviously with the pandemic that became a bit of an issue. So we sort of redirected our funding, and we're mostly funded by the lottery. We pushed it towards things like setting up a free hotline where someone can call up and tell us what their youth was like. They can tell us about their first love. They can tell us about what school was like for them. They can tell us about what their favourite band was. And those were sort of quite powerful. We started to think, maybe we can do more. We sent out free postcards to parents asking the elderly to stick a photo to it or write a story on it, send it back to us. But then we realised that we really needed to make more interactive activities, so we started to create games. We actually do have a youth culture bingo, where you, whenever you get a number, you get a fact from the date of the year. So that could be like the miniskirt was invented, or it could be like the Rolling Stones did their first tour. But we realised we need to take it one step further, and we started to kind of ask, just online only, the public to submit their images. So we got Time Out magazine to help us. This has got some great features that went in UK press, national press saying that there's a museum forming and we need your photographs. And we started this process. We knew we were already using PhotoShelter, and it's working really well for us to be able to archive our images. But we thought, how can we get images to go straight from someone's hard drive, someone's phone, into a gallery immediately without any workflow really coming from us? All we would do later on would be to sort of update and sort of finesse the keywording and things like that. So we went from, if you can see on this sort of diagram here, that we've used a piece of software called Cognito Forms, and that runs through a series of different processes, and you can see it runs straight to an FTP folder. So within PhotoShelter, we were able to set up an FTP gallery that receives images as soon as they get submitted to this form. They get straight into this public gallery, and your image is live. So what an amazing experience to say, send us a picture of yourself growing up at a hip hop gig. And when you're going to see it online, you can share it on Facebook and Instagram. You can tell people all about it. So that was one of the things that we found was the most, sort of powerful elements of this project. And we never really thought that it would be able to do that. And it's changed the way that we are actually going to work as an organisation in the future, because now, we've realised we don't actually need to necessarily do public events. So people were directed through things like this. We'd set up a Facebook advert. We got our digital agency for the first time to help us. And you can see we've got 641 likes and those 350 comments, very healthy. And people were just clicking on that learn more link and it will take them straight to that form, which will then take their images straight into PhotoShelter. So it's been a really fascinating journey for us, going from having to bring a scanner to events and sort of advertise that on Facebook and then turn up, and then actually going to a sort of fully online museum. When people click on the form, they get to this page where it will tell them a little bit more about what we need from them. We want their details, but we also want a story, as much as a story as they can offer. But also just to explain that we are a non-profit organisation. We can only do a certain amount of the images. One of the main things we will do is to exhibit it online and possibly in physical spaces as well, depending on restrictions. And also just make them realise that their image helps to set the record straight on youth culture, because there are a lot of issues that went on with that have gone on that have sort of put young people in the press negatively, and maybe it's time to challenge that. So we'd have like an automated process that would keep linking to this PhotoShelter tied form. So if you hadn't submitted, you'd signed up but you'd forgotten, you'd get this email just reminding you to get that shoebox out of the your loft, or get your storage out and just stop going through your photographs, because they're only going to sit there, and we can really use these images to start to tell a really important picture of youth culture over the last 100 years. And this is what happens. So straight away, you have the name of the person, you have a number assigned to them, and you have their submission. So this Growing Up in Britain album is live on our site. You can visit it at museumofyouthculture.com and click into the archive section. We've got about 2,000 submissions that we've received in there. I think a bit more over what's been screenshotted there. So just over lockdown alone, we've had 2,000 images, and we had 4,000 people sign up. So it really shows that people are at a time right now where they want to talk about their youth, and people are getting nostalgic, and I think it's a good time to have a place for people to put those images. So I'm just going to quickly run through a few images that we've received over this time. We've got like some amazing images from motorcycle fans, like I say, really going back to the 1950s and bringing the archive back. We've got a really strong sort of collection of club culture and rave culture in the archive. That in electronic music is sort of where it began, but we really needed to bring in that sort of rocker leather sort of style, and the public to get up and really help that. Even things like kids in youth clubs, this is actually very local to where our archive is based. So it's really nice to actually be able to sort of say to the local council, hey, we've got some images that you might want to put in your archive as well. So we always share our content with other archives to sort of encourage them to collect youth culture as well, because often a council will have their own archive, and it will be it'll just be sort of gigs or music spaces, but there won't be a section to talk about young people. Break dancers in the 80s in Covent Garden in London as well. Amazing submissions that came through. So I've taken a little bit blurry and a little bit sort of like less perfect than the images that we tend to have from our professional photographers, and that's been a really nice way of sort of de-escalating the sort of elitism of a museum, and actually allowing the public to submit and saying whatever quality is fine. This is actually Tina on the right, who you saw previously with my colleague, and Tina actually made that suit for her son. In the middle there, I believe that's her brother to the left, but at the time you couldn't buy suits for kids that fit that style, and this is a sort of teddy boy style, which is sort of a sort of UK take on the rock and roll scene of the 1950s. Also, the beginning of skating in the UK. This is actually an empty swimming pool in Kent, and the daughter of the skateboarder here sent this picture in because she saw that we really need this for the archive, and since he's got in touch, we've actually got that skateboard in our collection as well. He sent that over very kindly, so you can really see there's the community's growing online. And classic images of British youth, British subculture, sort of skinhead mod scene as well, ripped right through the middle of them. We'd never normally accept that, but actually we've realised that you can do a lot with these things if you print it out, rescan it, and learning about ways of being more, resourceful and I guess less precious in a way when it comes to receiving content from the public and public acquisitions. I have noticed that the golf team have really stepped up. We've had so many golfers send us images to the point where we've been almost overwhelmed, and that's been quite interesting. I think when you are someone who dressed like this as a teenager and you're into horror movies, you've got your skeleton hanging on your wall, it's something that sticks with you for life. And I know this lady in particular, I think she's called Debbie, she actually still dresses like that now, and she's in her 50s, but she still hasn't changed. And that's quite an amazing sort of anthropological study, really, the way that style in your teen tends to stick with people. So we're hoping that these findings will start to help academic studies as well, and actually sort of extend what we know about young people and the identity that gets formed then. Also, just to sort of bring my own family in, so the second to the right here is my granddad, and this was submitted by my grandparents. My family found it really difficult to understand what I do as a job. Telling you're an emerging museum of youth culture is quite hard to explain. But the moment we got a news piece in the BBC, that was it. She said, "Oh, why didn't you ask years ago?" I've got loads of pictures of growing up, which is quite interesting, and it made me realise if my grandparents, were, pretty sort of normal, grandparents, like there's nothing extraordinary about them. But this is an amazing photograph showing 1960s, young male fashion, which at the time, it looks really smart now, but at the time that would have been pretty shocking. They would have been getting some looks in the street. So yeah, it's been a really interesting project. And just getting really beautiful submissions. This girl's going to a festival and she's put plastic bags over her shoes so she doesn't get muddy. And it just shows that actually the older generation and the younger generation, it's all happened before, even the negative and the positives. So maybe that's a chance for us to sort of bridge different communities together and start to reconnect the younger people with older generations. And that's something that we've sort of found has been the most sort of socially therapeutic element of this. And that's me. So thanks very much for listening, guys. I'm looking forward to joining this discussion as well, because I think we've had some really interesting points made so far. So yeah, thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Jamie. I'll have our other panelists come back up. Jamie, it's amazing to see the archive that you all have built. It is really cool to see what you've put together, and I'm sure it's been a ton of work. We have a lot of people in the Slack channel talking about, wow, how did you digitize all those slides? So I think I want to kick it over to Yoav to get right into our questions. So Yoav, take it away.
Yes, thank you, and thanks to our speakers. That was really amazing. We have a bunch of questions, and if you have more questions, definitely drop them in the live chat. The first question we had actually a couple of questions for JP about kind of how your team does it. How does your 4-person team create so much content? And if you could describe the process working with that small of a team and developing that much content. And yeah, we can start there. There's a couple more questions related to that, but just kind of what's the process with your 4-person team?
Yeah, sure. Well, I also mentioned we work with 27 local creatives. So that's basically our freelance stable. What we ensure we do is we've got enough staff in-house to meet the actual demand of work that we know is coming down the pipeline. And then we use the freelance staffers, photographers, videographers, and editors to sort of, all the overflow of work that might come in, they help us manage that as well. One of the key things that I didn't mention is we invested heavily, but very strategically in the equipment that we have available. So, we've got cinema cameras, we've got DSLRs available, we've got drones, underwater housings, editing suites. So we made sure that we knew that it was a sort of a big investment right off the bat, but it's definitely paid off because we're not paying high agency fees. We're keeping all that content in-house. All the freelancers in Puerto Rico, they believe in the mission of Puerto Rico, which is key, but they also want to work with us because we're giving them the right tools. They don't have to go out and they don't have to rent additional cameras. They don't have to buy additional gear. We give them the right tools to do the job the right way.
Amazing, amazing. We've got a bunch of questions. This next one I'm going to throw to Nabila. Why, and actually anyone can answer this one for sure, but why is having an efficient workflow a key part of your strategy right now?
Certainly 2020 has, like I said, really changed every aspect of our side of the business on the brand strategy side, because the animals that we care for, close to 20,000 of them, plus rescue cases like Pippi, have no idea that there's a global pandemic. And so they require the same level of care and commitment every day. And so it in some ways has made our workflow, as we, those of us who don't care for the animals directly, work from home, a little bit more difficult, because we're relying on the folks that are on the ground inside the organization and continuing to do their field work to share those stories with us. And we're doing as much as we can to empower them, to feel like, you know, you don't need to worry about the branding, you don't need to worry about the tone, like we can do that, but just show us what you're experiencing, show us what it's like, and let us translate that to our audiences.
Great. And a great question from Autumn, specifically for JP, but I think all of you guys can answer this question. So how are you organizing all of those images that you have? JP, you said 14,000. Jamie, I know you all have a huge archive. Tips for strategy regarding photo organization? We'll throw it to JP first.
I think that's an ongoing process. You got to be constantly doing it. You got to be constantly on top of your team and on top of yourself to make sure that you've got the organizational skills. I'm not an organized person whatsoever, but I've learned to use the tools that are available. And PhotoShelter is a great tool. DSLR cameras come with the ability for you to input metadata into the images while you're on the field. I think that's a great thing to do. When you're on the field, make sure that you're putting all those location tags, identifiers, and then when we come in, our photographers, our freelancers, and our staff know that it's a requirement, a part of the process, that once the images have been approved, color graded, and approved by myself and the CMO, that they need to be uploaded. They need to have the right metadata, and we need to use PhotoShelter's unique abilities and functions to be able to create all those different folders, galleries, that are going to help our small and medium businesses access the images that they need. So it's really a teamwork and making sure that you've got the right tools and using them adequately.